What's up, everybody? We'll get going in just a moment. There's the music.
There, you know what? I've been talking this whole time, and I didn't even realize I had the. I've been.
Oh, no way.
I've been putting out poetry, and I'm thinking, like, guy, these guys aren't saying much. And
That's funny.
yeah. So what I was saying is I changed up the background music a little bit. Tried to get a
Oh,
different.
we got a different track for the day.
It's just a little more thoughtful, if you will, more you know, mellow, not quite as clubby.
Not as more thoughtful.
Yeah, just get those gears kind of turning, get those that mouse kind of turning that wheel. But yeah, today we will talk about for Full Thursday, we'll talk about some crypto quotes and kind of get some good discussion going on that. And I tagged in my own personal Twitter account, Charlie Shrim, seeing
I
if
like that one. I like that one a lot.
Seeing if he could, trying to raise him out, seeing if I could smoking him out of his hole and get in here. That'd be a great AMA someday. Talk about his trip to jail and all.
Yeah. Hey, how y'all doing?
We're doing great, Paul. How you doing?
Hey, great. Hey, just quick question. So I've been linking up with a bunch of the direct Traderverse team.
Sure.
And hey, Smart Rick, what's your role with I just followed you, so what's your role with Traderverse?
I am chief of community, so I'm the one who networks and helps with what's going on in the Discord, that kind of stuff. Just I live in this space, and any sort of person that loves Traderverse, I would love to talk to them and figure out how we can grow this community with whatever ideas anyone can think of. We all have passions in trading. That's why we're all on the financial side of Twitter. And how can we have a win-win scenario where everyone grows and ultimately we make a better place.
Yeah, and then hey, the Traderverse account, who's running that? Is that just like for whoever is going to be on the team for the spaces of the day, or
that is the voice of DeFi?
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. I need some reverb. So I'll be running these spaces as far as the host. My personal account is the voice of DeFi, so at voice of DeFi. But as far as the account itself, the Twitter account, it's community ran. So if you see a fire tweet, the good tweets that go out, maybe I did those. And if you don't like the tweet, then it was probably Rick.
Yeah, it was definitely me. My grammar sometimes sucks, so yeah.
Now, it's a community-led account, but for the spaces itself of who's speaking from this account, it's usually going to be myself. Which you can always follow my personal account of at Voice of DeFi, but usually it will be myself. And you can call me Steven if you if you want to actually go by a normal name.
That's with a V or a PH?
It's with a V.
All right.
It's funny. I'm not doxxed, but sometimes for whatever reason, to sign up for something, you need a last name. So my last name that I'll choose on things is with a V, which is Stephen with a V.
Oh, that's clever. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Hey guys, well, I connected with Mike Herman a lot and John, and I'm really so excited about this. But I'm gonna drop down and let you guys do your thing. I didn't.
And Mikey's the boy. Mikey's the man.
Yeah. I just saw the three of us for a little bit, and I thought I would just chit chat with you guys. But I'm gonna jump down and I'll be here and let you guys do your thing. And
appreciate you, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, appreciate it, Paul. Well, to those of you that are just coming in here and heard just the tail end of that conversation, this is the Traderverse Thoughtful Thursday Hour. We show up here every day at this time, and we talk about just the latest topics that are going on in the crypto world. We may also move over to Discord at some time and do a really fire AMA over there. But what I might ask for you, if you're listening in, is to hit that button at the bottom right of your screen and tweet out this room. Let's get as many people in here as we possibly can, because whenever we do that, we'll have a lot of good engagement. And I think we've got a good topic for engagement today. I really do. We want to talk about just some crypto quotes that I think will just make you think. They just make you think like, is that right? Is that wrong? And not all of the quotes that we talk about they may not be pro Bitcoin or pro crypto. They may be against it, and maybe the story will say that it rallied our community to be able to say, no, that's not true. And it kind of became a rallying point. So yeah, I would love to hear as we talk about the different quotes, because Rick and I each have a few that we've kind of thought that would be really neat to discuss. I want to hear your thoughts on them. And so raise your hand, come on up here in the stage. And as we say the different quotes, I want to give what your thoughts on them, because each of them have probably a whole episode, a whole podcast we could talk about in just a few lines of quotes. So one of the first ones I want to say, and by the way, Rick, did you pick out a few? Did you look for a few that really spoke to you?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's a couple. So I'll let you start, and we'll see where the conversation goes, and I'll add mine as we go.
Perfect. Well, the first one, I just want to go straight out for that I think's you've read this one before, you've heard it before, but it's straight up from Satoshi himself. I love that we have a figure that like no one really knows who it is. I've heard Rick give me his thoughts on who he thinks it is, and a pretty convincing argument actually. But the quote was, "If you don't believe it or don't get it, I don't have the time to try to convince you. Sorry." So that was one of the earliest Bitcoin quotes in existence. Satoshi puts out the white paper. He says, the way it works. But he kind of, if you'll go to Bitcoin Talk, which you can still see all of his original quotes on there, original messages on there, you can see that he had a bit of I don't want to say a personality or an attitude or something like that. But he basically said, if you don't believe this or you don't get it, I don't have the time to try to convince you. It's right there. It's mathematics. You're going to have to try to be able to figure that out. But he saw what we all see before anyone else ever saw it. I guess that's a question that I have is it good to have an attitude kind of as if you don't believe it, if you don't know, you know, if you know, you know, and if you don't know, you don't know. Is it good to be able to have that sort of an attitude when we're trying to convince people about this technology?
I mean, I get what he's saying though. Like it is complicated, and it took me hearing other people speak. So to back it up, I was in a Clubhouse room about a year and a half ago, and it was a room of people talking about Bitcoin, and the consensus in the room, was like, what is Bitcoin? Why is it important? And they had some really nice mods, really good thought leaders. There's big bankers in there, like a lot of like wealthy people in there, and there's the people who really struck me. It was the guys from Nigeria who, and I've told the story before, is they said that buying Bitcoin because of their currency being so unstable has helped them in international business and brought like tranquility to their community where they can provide more. And like I never really thought of that, and I was like, I never thought about that application of Bitcoin. It just kind of like made me have that and I think that's a great place to start for a thoughtful. And you're seeing that for more cryptocurrencies, utility tokens, and all of the many different uses for it, and we're seeing more and more and more with specific niche utilities where it's become a different solution. And so I use this as my example of why Bitcoin is where it is today. And I think it's definitely morphed, and it definitely morphed from what Satoshi's original use of it as a transactional peer-to-peer currency. And now it's like more of that store of wealth. My thought is it's the theory of DeFi, and not the voice of DeFi, but the theory of DeFi, people believing in it. And they're like, I'm going to put my fiat assets into this because I believe in the bankless. I believe in all of the reasons why decentralized currencies and tokens exist, for the most part, or why they started. And I just see that as being like the social cause of why Bitcoin was, and is becoming adopted, now even at an institutional level. So that's my long answer to that, I guess.
No, but one thing you said right off the beginning is, I don't think that Satoshi was an educator, right? I don't think that's where his skill set was. And you said you had a Nigeria, experience where somebody said that really helps out our country because it's borderless and easy to send payments. And that kind of was a light bulb moment for you. Where there is opportunity and where this makes me, for Thoughtful Thursday, where I start thinking about this is, education is so needed in this space because you need to be able to say things in a certain way to get people to understand. And different people need to, some people need to see videos and see, pretty pictures for understanding, what a, SHA-256 algorithm is, or something that's a very complex concept. And then, so education is needed. So his original quote, if you don't believe it or get it, I don't have the time to try to convince you. yeah, that's fine. But luckily, other people do. Other people do have that skill set to be able to say, this is what's so great about this. This is why this is good for other countries, because they can, easily send money across borders without any issues, without a centralized bank, without anything like that. So there's a space for education, and really, if you're on Twitter or you've got your own social media, there's a space for content creation, because there's always room to be able to kind of grow something. By the way, Rick, you and I had discussed this earlier. Charlie Shrim liked my tweet.
Oh, he did.
He did. So
You should at him again and be like, "Get in this room.
come on in. I'll do that. Do that in just a second. See if I can get him in. But yeah,
No, it's exactly right. And like education and like why everyone probably, I know a lot of people probably just listening in at work or want to learn more about crypto, or just, people in this room. I don't know why people come in, but I feel like these kind of spaces, Twitter spaces, are so great for people to start to learn this knowledge, hear other people's stories, where it's not reading a white paper. Yeah, you should do your own research and go try to read and comprehend, but then where you have questions, you ask questions. And that's what like a room like this is for. Like, oh, I read here and you sound like an expert. What do you think of this? Or DM somebody. And that can start along in your educational process, because there are, places like the YouTubes of the world and Twitters of the world where people put out stuff, but it's the interaction and the niche questions that you have to totally understand a complex thing like, Bitcoin and how all of that works, and distributed ledgers. And that is, that's what social media is for, well, for me at least, it's kind of been like that, and to connect with community with other people. And but yeah, that's the cool thing about that clubhouse room. It turned that light bulb on for me, and I actually got to speak and ask, and it helped me understand why there is such an importance to it.
You mean you at one time didn't understand it all?
Oh
That's
yeah, absolutely.
amazing.
I'm, on Discord I am Dumb Brick, and I'm Smart Rick on Twitter. So like,
I love Smart Rick and Dumb Brick. I love that Jekyll and Hyde. It's such a great bit that you do. But yeah, so I love that you mentioned that. And so anybody that's listening in here, maybe you are Rick before you knew anything. And if you want to come and, ask and talk about it, I'm not guaranteeing that I will have the answer or that Rick will have the answer, but it will stimulate that conversation because other people might have it. So if one of these quotes that we say makes you think, man, I've always wanted to know what people think of this topic, raise your hand, get on up here, and I'd love to be able to hear from you, to hear what you have to say. All right, I'm going to go with my next quote, something a little bit different. Okay, we've got Satoshi. Next one, I'm going to go to the music industry. Let's do a little Nipsey Hussle. Okay, are you aware that he actually had a quote that is pretty he was well versed. And by the way, you'll notice I said was Nipsey
RIP.
left us. Yeah, R.I.P. He left us in 2019. So sad there, sad time there. But one of his quotes was, "Anytime a country transitioned to a fiat currency, they collapsed. That's just world history. You don't have to know about cryptocurrency to know that." And I like that because his comment is strictly on fiat, really. The second part of his comment is you don't even have to know about crypto to know that fiat may have a life cycle. And, at the end of that life cycle, maybe, oh, let's just print more money to, to gloss over our woes. And that can make things go very much awry. So Nipsey gave us, he's a worldwide known rapper, but he was really involved in the community, and this type of quote shows that he was thinking on a different level than just dollar bills.
Yeah, all that I was like, Nipsey, like really, I didn't know that about him. I know a lot about Nipsey, but I didn't know that he spoke about this kind of stuff, which, RIP, like I said, I was a huge fan of his music and just kind of who he stood for out in LA. And it's sad that he's gone. But yeah, no, it's like the late stage capital. I don't know if you ever follow any of that kind of stuff and like what late stage capitalism looks like. And, a lot of the things that are happening, pandemic, no pandemic, it kind of seems like, what they write about in that stuff. And when the end of capitalism and it moves into something else, like socialism, communism, or whatever form of economic system. We have a lot of those signs, and like I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The modern monetary theory of giving people the control of money and taxing it, and all of that stuff. Another very complex theory, but that's another really big solve. And if you're on Twitter, you're in stock land as well. Like a lot of people talk about inflation and freak out about inflation right now, and a lot of that has to do with fiat because it's the currency that it is. So it's just a very interesting thought in how cryptocurrency can you don't have to understand it, you just kind of have to accept it. And
For sure.
take advantage of it is probably one of the better things to say.
Well, yeah, there is accept it, and take advantage of it probably is just taking advantage of the opportunity that's before us. If you were listening earlier in the week than we really just talked about on We All Gonna Make It Wednesday, we talked about the opportunity that this space provides. But yeah, you could say take advantage of that opportunity too, because it's right here. And since we are in, or maybe it's debatable whether we are in late stage capitalism or the end of a fiat cycle, however you want to word it. I think Nipsey was onto something here whenever he was saying, fiat currency will, in the end, let me make sure I'm saying it correct, lead to collapse. And he just says that's just world history. So, you're not necessarily, I don't even think he was necessarily predicting the future. He was merely just commenting on what has already happened. And maybe that's a good predictor. I'm not going to get into chart reading or anything, hell, but a lot of people look at what's happened historically on any asset to be able to say what's going to happen in the future. And looking at the history of fiat, that certainly is the case there with him. So my third one I want to mention, and then I'm going to throw it to Rick, let him throw out some good quotes, is from Charlie Shrem. I went ahead and put it up at the top because I thought it was an interesting one. And I'll be honest, one of the reasons I put it up top is because I know Charlie is a active member of Twitter. If you're unfamiliar with this story, it's a fantastic story. Crypto basically led Charlie Shrem to jail. He spent some time jailed because of Bitcoin. And you can read about that. There's a fantastic book called Bitcoin Billionaires. It's kind of the sequel to The Social Network, and it deals with the Winklevoss twins and Charlie Shrem, and it's a fantastic read. But yeah, his quote was, "The reason we are all here is that the current financial system is outdated. It's outdated. So it is difficult to move money across borders. It is difficult to send a boatload of money without it going through several hands, and each hand's taking from the pot as it goes by. So you send $1 million, and eventually by the time it gets to where you need it to go, it may be quite a bit less than $1 million. So there's definitely issues. And worst of all, it's centralized. Our current system, the system that he's talking about, the current financial system, it is very centralized. If one country completely crumbles and is not around, then it can literally make it to where some funds are not accessible. And we've seen that happen in some other countries where all of a sudden centralized banks funds aren't accessible. So it's outdated. Crypto, Bitcoin allows for decentralization to happen, to where it's not all in one place. It's not all in a bank. It's to where, decentralized finance. I picked the name, the voice of DeFi, for a reason, because it's decentralized. It makes it to where, if one country has all their servers go away, all the computers in one country completely stop working, then the system will go on. Nothing will change, and the system will continue to go on. So Charlie Shrem said that. Like I said, he's seen some things. He's been over in jail and came out on the other side, and really at times has thought about he would just completely give up crypto, just completely not deal with it any longer at all. And now he's out and he runs a podcast.
Yeah, we should get him in here somehow one day. Yeah, the money mafia, that is the current system that we are. Everything has to move through them with their say so, and they take a little off the top. Taxation in crypto is one thing, for sure. But not being able to send people money across borders is kind of, as just a regular everyday person, like it's kind of perplexes me. I understand it's like money laundering and all that good stuff, but at the end of the day, like it's control that they shouldn't have, in my opinion. And what I do with my money, like what I do for a living, how I earn that money is none of their business. All they want is the money of my hard work, and I get what it goes to. I'm not anti-tax by any means, because I drive on roads and I've gone through public schooling, but it's just Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and this whole movement really takes out so many middlemen. Where we talked about this yesterday with Tory Lane's album. Like, he didn't have to pay his record label, he didn't have to pay his management fees. All the proceeds went straight to him and for his hard work. And it's the same way when you do a lot of these big financial deals. Is goes to this bank, signs off, they take their 2%. You swipe your Visa, MasterCard, there's a little bit of a bill that goes to the merchant. I know there's Ethereum gas fees that are kind of outrageous. So, there's definitely some things to be said about that. But, there's just inefficiencies in the system.
For sure. But, you just mentioned that what we had talked about earlier this week was the NFTs that artists could do and things like that. So this goes beyond, the technology goes beyond just, oh, this is a neat currency that I can send my family that lives in another country, and I can send it to them for very low fees. that's great. But just the whole technology of now, we can say it can even, make it to where I can own something digitally as we get into NFTs and things like that, that can now be owned. And it's creating games and, play to earn games that in other countries, you're literally seeing people making a living in some countries that have a lower cost of living just by playing these games. There's an opportunity that comes from these. And I can see why some of these quotes kind of speak in this visionary point of view, because it's not just visionary anymore. We're seeing it happen. It's happening right now, where you're having, countries that, normally their cost of living is not very high, and they're able to make cryptocurrency from playing these games and make a living out of it. And that seems, just even 10 years ago, would have seemed bonkers to even think about. Even in Bitcoin's life cycle, I don't know that we could have ever, I don't know that we could ever, but I don't think people were thinking of that commonly up to that level. But here we are. This isn't a thing like we think it could happen. It is happening right now.
We are in the midst of it, for sure.
Let's hear a quote. Yeah, let's hear
yeah. I'll
break open your head.
I think where that the last two ended. I think this one speaks very well to it, and how old this quote is. Cryptographical solutions might be the greatest proprietary to be introduced into academics as a means of giving tone to the most important of the powers of the mind. And that was Edgar Allan Poe.
I thought we were going to guess of like we should say the quote, and then if people guess like who may have said that.
Next one.
Oh man, Edgar Allan Poe. Say that again. That Edgar Allan Poe said. I'd love to hear it again.
Cryptographical solutions might be the greatest proprietary to be introduced into academics as the means of giving tone to the most important of the power of the mind.
How did this guy see? I mean, obviously he wasn't directly talking about cryptocurrency, but
Satoshi confirmed. Edgar Allan Poe. He's still alive.
There you go. That's amazing. No one ever really saw what a twist that would be. If that Satoshi is Edgar Allan Poe.
That's when you play on the soundboard the X-Files, like do 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 do.
I've got a magic fairy. Yeah, that's as good as I can get you for that on short notice. Or I've got just a yeah. So there you go. Satoshi confirmed. But yeah, so Edgar Allan Poe actually was speaking on cryptographical solutions. How old is that quote, do you think? I'll admit I'm not real good on my Edgar Allan Poe history and what era he even lived in. But he's talking cryptographical solutions, which he's a friend of mine. That's really cool to talk about. He talks about being introduced into academies. So he was a proponent of having, this taught in school, which I think it should. I honestly, in public school, in university, wherever you're at, I think they should be giving, we already have finances where, you have economics and you learn about economics. I see no reason why the basics of, cryptocurrency could not be taught in public schools. And I can see that Edgar Allan Poe agrees with me.
Yeah. And if we start teaching this kind of stuff at a very elementary level, like a lot of people in social media are at very much a elementary level understanding it, other than when Lambo, and that it just goes up because there's a lot to be said about children understanding and learning and not forcing all these habits, because like a lot of people, like I'm 30, I know the world to be X, when there's so much more going on and more solutions to a lot of problems. And we're taught what we're supposed to be taught, and if we start to expand our minds a little bit, not to get too woke on a thoughtful Thursday, maybe more people would understand going through the system and know the power they could wield in this kind of solution into Web3 land.
Wait a second, I want to expand on something you said. So you think, social media influencers wield a lot of power just by
oh yeah, 100%
message. Yeah, I can see that. And I don't think sometimes we realize just how many new people are in the space with each, big cycle. These giant bull runs, every giant bull run brings in a new group of people to be able to just get excited about it. And I think we as a community have to do our best not to speak down to those people and actually try to educate them. I mean, everybody was just like you in a clubhouse room, not really getting it at one time and asking questions. Everybody was in your shoes at one point. So, I always want to have, I want, especially at Traderverse, I want us to have that welcoming community to say, hey, If you're an expert, we've got something for you. And because some of our talks that we have on this this very show are a little bit more high level, but I also want to have some talks that speak to the elementary, the freshman level type of crypto or just trading in general. If we just talk about stocks or trading in general, I want to offer that without alienating people and boring people that maybe already know those things. That's up to me to try to stay entertaining and keep keep a little fun sound effects and things like that to make everybody chuckle or something. I think that what you're saying there as the quote really just kind of gets into a bigger conversation of what can we do to be able to help out a community to really understand what we're trying to say. So
sorry,
next,
yeah, I was muted. I was like, yes, I agree, and
you're giving out like a hell yeah, and then
hell yeah, the most motivational thing I've ever said in my entire life. Now it's gone.
right.
It was I blacked out for a second. Can't repeat it. No, I mean, I'm 2-3 years into this space myself, and I started from absolutely nothing, and I had to self-educate myself, and luckily I found some really fucking smart people to help me and like on my journey. But not everyone has that luxury or has the ability to be like me, where I'm a social butterfly, put myself out there and people recognize. Some people are just like lurkers and just kind of observe and try to figure it out on their own, but not enough people are active. But we want to give enough resources where people can self-educate themselves in a way that they can apply it to their everyday life, not just trading life but everyday life, means of finance, means of budgeting, means of trading, whatever it is, and trading their knowledge, their community, their fellowship, all together, where it's a productive environment. What up, Joey? You have something to add on?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm active in the library system in my area, and they have maker fairs, and I'm actually going to be showing kids how to make NFTs, just very simplified, how to like put your stuff out there. But the thing I keep seeing as a barrier for entry is the amount of importance on Twitter followers that the space has. Like, if it's a musician, how can I honestly say, like, your stuff might get noticed when they make it and go to market and they're instantly labeled unverified, put in the corner, everything. So, like, when kids don't see, I see them as allies because the banking system did not work for them. So they're instantly going to like gravitate towards something like that, especially a revenue stream in impoverished neighborhoods. But how do I get by the lesson of, well, first you have to establish a community of like 30,000 Twitter followers, and then maybe you'll get noticed.
Man, I guess you have to be in your space to really understand that, to be educating and to like have a real successful NFT launch. I never think about that as you're teaching kids. That's a great perspective that, Joe's over here teaching kids how to make NFTs, which is great. I mean, that's really good. But then, you realize that to really have a successful launch of making this and making a lot of people kind of have FOMO over wanting this NFT, you're going to have a big social following. And maybe these kids don't have that or haven't built that yet. So let me ask that to whether it be Joey or Rick or anybody else that wants to add in. How do we mitigate that issue? How do we make it to where either we educate them that that's a kind of a necessary tool, or how do we get good projects out for somebody that's not established yet, whether they're young or old? How do they get their projects to be seen without having this giant baked in following?
I think if you go back in time, like 20-30 years ago, when there wasn't social media at all, and how we heard people on the radio or the CDs we bought was hand selected and curated by some wealthy person with knowledge and the means to give them a platform. And at least in today's day and age, anyone, mostly anybody, can have a platform within social media and promote their stuff, whether they get the right exposure, whether they get the right people in their network. I mean, that's some of it's luck, and I would say that I had plenty of luck to get to where I am today. And by no means am I a big deal. I just really like connecting with people, and I think networking at the end of the day is like how you really can grow that circle, and people recognize your talents. For these for these kids, if you find someone who puts something together that's really really cool, someone with a following that may fall in line with not being such a shill, someone who just appreciates it. A lot of these people are accessible these days where you can message right at them. and a lot of the DMs are open. And that's one of the cool things about the Web3 space. Is a lot of these founders and executives of, Ave's one of them. Like the guy's always like, my DMs are open. If you have an idea, if you have something that you want to talk to me about or don't understand, they're open. And like I think that's kind of the spirit of the space. So I think that's progressive.
Yeah, I love that. That's going to make me think a lot more what Joey said as far as it also puts, as you said, a lot of pressure on influencers already. If you've got a decent following and you spot a really good project, NFT based or any other, crypto or whatever project, maybe there is some kind of a thought that you might have of, hey, I should retweet this, I should engage with this because they don't have much of a following, not on pity, but because you recognize, real recognize real, right? You see whenever there's an actual good project out there, and you understand that, hey, they've got 10 followers, it's probably never going to be seen. Maybe I can help them out because there's probably somebody out there that's really smart, really artistic, really, can make fantastic work, but maybe just isn't very interested in having the social aspect of it. This is not what they want to do, but they do want their art seen. But they're not like you, Zach, which is just good at talking with people and have that ability. It definitely. I haven't really thought about that. That's really thought provoking to me to think that like that is a roadblock of the need for social proof.
And also I can give it a story example of this in living color. So like when I made my journey into Twitter, from Discord to start. I know I have a background in intelligence and doing like white paper research reports, stuff like that. I started to do that with like all the information I was gathering for a trade, and like I still remember this day. I made a Prezi, the application Prezi, and I on Barnes and Noble Education. I thought it was a really good pick. It was at like 89 cents or $1 something at the time. It's up over $8 now. So obviously it was a good trade. And I put something really aesthetically pleasing, put a lot of time into it, like has a clickable links for all these insider buys that I was like, I told the narrative of it and there was value in it. And I sent it up the ladder in Yates Investing, who, if you're a stock trader, people know he's a pillar in this community. And, he shared it and gave me props, and I continued to make blogs, and he would always share my stuff, whether he took the trade or he just saw the value in the effort that I put in, and we built community over that. And like he helped me grow my following tremendously just through that. And it was that very spirit that you talked about of people seeing real, recognize real, and giving me the platform of his following and saying, you should check this guy out. This guy is putting in effort, regardless if he believed in it or not. He saw the work that I put in, and like forever grateful. And like that's why we're still friends to this day. And he's actually an ambassador for Traderverse. And and I don't really want to speak too much about him, but he recognizes as an influencer, he has social responsibility now with the amount of exposure he has to people. So he's one of the good ones. He's a great dude. He's a great friend. And like, so there are good ones out there. And like for Joey, for like, it's, that's maybe your responsibility is when you find real talent. We've talked about Nick, Nick, he's a 13-year-old NFT prodigy.
He's awesome.
He's amazing, not only in knowledge, but in talent. Which I think
But
kind
he
of
gets the social he gets the social aspect of what
oh
he's
yeah, he does. And I think he has the ability to be a pillar of his peers in what he's doing as a 13-year-old. It's absolutely insane. But so what I was saying, Joey, is you find these people who are, the character, the platform that you're thinking of, and you share that to them, and that will show like their true character. Because there's a lot of just shills where it's like, hey, it's 20 grand Twitter post to get your name out there, and you're like, wait, what? Like, no, like that's not cool. That's not the spirit of Web3. But that's very much a marketing. People are taking it as a business, and whatever, good on them. It's the game.
Well, the problem, the reason it's an issue is because I'm in the Cleveland area, and Cleveland is one of the biggest redlined areas in the nation, especially when it comes to internet access. 4% of households in Cleveland do not have internet access.
You're kidding.
Nope. It's like the worst in the country. Yeah, so they're limited by that also. But there are solutions. I mean, they do go to the library and they use the computers and everything, but they get like an hour at a time. And the pandemic really hurts that. I mean, there are solutions coming, but nobody's interested. There was a spaces with a bunch of musicians, and of course I hopped up because I'm opinionated, even though I have like no real technical skill. I still make up stuff. Like I have a pretty crazy NFT concept, like how to make them driver's license and everything, but I don't know how to make it work technically, and that's going to be a long process. But yeah, so I mentioned to them that the metaverse is actually going to have a lot of opportunities for musicians, even if they don't know it. They can become the first like metaverse centric Beats by Dre, or like radio or like station player. They can have their own Spotify that plays on Sandbox, and I got like a bunch of hundred emojis or whatever. But then when I said, or like record execs can have open mic nights for like people to connect their NFTs, and like maybe you'll find some new talent. Nobody cared about that one so much. So unless you can monetize what's popular in this space already, popular, it seems like nobody's interested.
Oh, I mean, I like that idea of the open mic, and I think you're right. Part of Traderverse is like, part of my story personally. I mean, is social media, during this pandemic, connected to people all over the world. I have friends in Singapore, I have friends in China, I have friends in Texas, I have friends in, every state possible just through that. And we all live on the same time, not time zone, but time, which is now. And now we can instantly talk to each other. And like the whole metaverse concept that you just talked about with open mic, that literally puts everyone at um, an equal playing field in, I wouldn't say exposure, but in, that current moment where anybody could have that opportunity. You just got to be there.
Well, I think some of what you're saying earlier is everybody needs a champion. Everybody needs somebody to champion them, and that even goes with like the regular, non-crypto world. If you hold a 9 to 5, if somebody's been promoted through the ranks through their company, eventually they have to have somebody that vouches for them, that says, Rick's good. He's good. Go ahead and give him that promotion. He's earned it. He's done well. And yeah, so everybody needs that champion. And yeah, as far as needing like a social proof, or something needs to be popular before it can really get going. Yeah, I guess that's a reality of the way things can go sometimes. But it's something that I still would like us to kind of look to try to solve, because just because open mic night didn't seem to get as much traction doesn't mean that it's not in the future. I just think it just means we have to show what the abilities of the technology are to the community.
A lot of conversations I've been having, lately, working in this space, is kind of that, though, is that, this Web3 space is so new, and people are doing stuff for like the very first iteration or time. And so, like with that driver's license idea, like, yeah, people are talking about it and trying to figure out solutions for that, but they're going to be pioneers in that. There is no YouTube, this is how you do it. You have to be creative. You have to come up with solutions, and yeah, that's hard. But there's enough people who resonate with that and want that to happen, where you can find a team, you can find a community to do so, and like that's the cool part about this space.
Yeah, but okay, so like I work in building automation, so I don't do the coding, but I understand the if this then that and verification and all that. So the way I see NFTs, and I've described it, is it's a light, but nobody knows how to bring power to that light bulb, and they also don't know how to turn it on and off. So like the immutability and transparency of NFTs is what everybody loves, but it's not going to work. It's too open and public for things like driver's licenses. But
I love that analogy though of the light bulb. No one knows how to power it or turn it on and off. I love that. I'm that. Just letting you know.
no, you better. Well, then you would like my schematic, and I'm not shilling because I'm actually trying to do a project that actually shows the power of what I'm saying. Very, very similar to what I just said. I mean, I'm not being vague enough, and my partner is gonna kill me. But like, because ironically, we go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just said you heard it here first. You're spilling
These
the
spaces are being recorded.
Yeah, no. Like I'm thinking about like making an NFT somehow, but I want to demonstrate it because I have the project and they got it at all, and then they turned and implemented a lot of the strategies and what I was saying for their own project. But I'm telling you, I'll just tell you the license thing because it doesn't really give anything away. The problem is people think that they will own the NFTs if it's a driver's license. No, the state issues you licenses. Your ID is something that needs to be renewed and validated. So the NFT will be a driver's license for me, it's Ohio. Obviously, I told you Cleveland. It's going to be the NFT is going to have your driver's license number. That's totally viewable in public. That's fine. It will have the laws that are attributed to a license, but there needs to be a mechanism to be in place, for them to validate that it's you attached to that driver's license number on their end, and then on your end, it's basically going to be the power to allow that to be viewable, accessible, and some way for you to be able to maintain that. And I can't say too much, but basically, if you lose your phone or report it missing, it automatically loses its uh, verification or like validity or attachment to you. So basically, if you lose your phone, it automatically loses its power and nobody can access any of the information tied to it. And what's crazy is there was a Spaces from, oh man, Matt Barnell or something like that from Microsoft talking about Square and DIDs with Bitcoin's immutable ledger. Like that's the missing piece to what I was saying within a centralized trust vector.
Yeah, it would have to be like the municipalities launching their own blockchain, and you're minting essentially your own licenses through some verification network, and it'd be interesting. Miami would be the best place to start, since they launch or are launching Miami Coin, and that's through their municipality. But I don't know if that's something on their docket or not.
Well, what's funny is like the whole separation between publicly viewable is what's necessary, and they're going to need their own private blockchain. But there still needs to be some kind of like decentralized certification for it to be fully embraced by the blockchain
Yeah, you're getting
community.
the marriage between, like you said, you don't own it, your local would own it, and so get into a little bit of centralization there versus the need for decentralization. Like you said, if they had their own blockchain and things like that, there gets to be, as we have some governments that start kind of embracing blockchain, there's going to be a little bit of growing pains, I think, as we figure out to what degree does centralization still need to be there, and to what degree does decentralization going to take over of things that were traditionally centralized. Because you're going to see, I've even seen in play to earn gaming, where you have like a centralized onboarding. You sign on in a truly decentralized game, but your sign up process is through Google or Facebook, which is obviously not decentralized. And so I think that takes some time to be able to be able to kind of meld both of those worlds together. And it makes it easier as an education standpoint for onboarding.
So centralization isn't a terrible thing. It's just not a great thing for everything. And there's aspects of both where they're going to live together. And I think that there's a very bad stigma of everything needs to be decentralized, that is kind of, I would say, counterproductive to the innovation that could happen with this space. There needs to be certain centralized things in order for things to make sense and run efficiently. But there's definitely security and other aspects that decentralized makes more sense. The distribution of power in voting, or distributing of your security of your identity, and this whole movement of I got to be doxxed, I don't want to do that. Like I just think that at some point there will be a bridge where there needs to be adequate compliance of the security of your identity, where you can still be anonymous when you want to be anonymous, but the regulatory people at Bay would have the information they need in order for stuff like a driver's license to be issued and for it to be done safely.
Well, I can agree. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Joey. I can agree that centralization doesn't have to be a bad thing, but just like some laws are kind of intended for a certain righteous reason, and they're overstepped. They're used too widely, and I won't get into any of them because I'm not trying to start political debates or anything like that. But there are different type of things that end up being an overreach whenever their intent was not, is not being followed now. So I that's my only counterpoint to centralization. Doesn't have to be a bad thing. I agree what you're saying. I'm just worried we humans who are always power hungry, if there's a chance and there's some centralization involved, there's always a chance that somebody may take more power than they should be allotted.
Well, so like in my opposition research, because I'm like, this is so stupid. Somebody's already thought of doing this or invented this, and it's not even patentable. It's just a concept. But so the problem is everybody in the space is like, how do we reach adoption? Even with DIDs, how do we reach adoption? But what people don't even understand is that it's already fully adopted. Blockchain technology, it's Hyperledger Fabric. I don't know what it is because I didn't want to like have any kind of idea of what it is. But Amazon has Hyperledger Fabric. Linux has a ton of patents with NFTs and Hyperledger Fabric, and it's already been adopted. But their whole thing is it is completely private and centralized. So, building automation systems. There's Johnson Controls, Siemens. There's a bunch of big players in the industry, and there's been a need recently for back-end compatibility, and they are struggling because they all want to keep their information private. They don't want anybody stealing a lot of their code and how they do everything. So they all have their own language. They all have their own parameters, especially with like HVAC. So with HVAC controls, there's usually 0 to 10 milliamps, or there's 0 to 7 millivolts. Nobody knows how to make it back-end compatible. That's where NFTs can actually come into play. You can have like certain metadata values that are attributed on one and work with the other. So everybody's either NFTs have to be totally viewable. In the private industry, they're like, it needs to be totally private. There needs to be a mechanism to enable it to be determined to be valid or acting that has a little bit of both. And like you said, how it's kind of preventing itself, our understanding of things that are actually preventing any kind of enhancement is 100% accurate, in my opinion.
No,
I can agree with that. No, and I think a simplified version of that, it would be, say, with like these EV electric cars. And like with Tesla, you can buy upgrades to your car that are in your car's ability, like, you know, speed control. Or I actually come from the HVAC world, so I 100% agree with that example. And but to be able to buy an NFT from Tesla that unlocks the, you know, the hyperdrive speed, whatever they call it, you know, and then when does aftermarket, you know, stuff like in tuning and capabilities come into play? Does it ever? And NFTs become that service, you know? That's a really interesting
Well,
concept, and I know
informate us on that for that Tesla example. So let's say you own a Tesla and you've got all the upgrades, and then you sell me that car. Do I get those upgrades, or is it
you sell the NFT.
well, no, let's say it's not an NFT, because it's not an NFT right now, correct?
Right.
With Tesla.
Well,
So right
it's
as
be
it
part
stands,
of the sales package, maybe. Like if you buy it for a little bit more, I'll upgrade you to this. And
but
you
what if I
hand it
buy it
over.
from the secondary market? What if I buy it from you? Is that transferable, those upgrades that you bought?
I think it's a mobility as a service kind of thing, where it would be an additional charge to whatever you bought. So say I bought the most stacked out at MSRP, I would assume they would transfer. But if I say I bought the baseline and upgraded along the way and had a monthly charge, I would say maybe not.
Well, that's what I was thinking, is if that was what you were getting with Tesla was an NFT, that would make interesting, like transfer of ownership of, okay, I've transferred you the ownership of the car and the NFT that I bought from Tesla, that will get you access to its more advanced features.
Yeah, I was going to say like registering your vehicle with Tesla, same way you register anything with a warranty, that registration could carry that over. They can have it tied to the car, for instance.
Smart contracts are endless.
Oh, dude, like, so in my pitching this idea to this one project, which was a huge flop. It was funny. They don't even have like NFTs on their radar. They just have like a trust vector that I like. But one of the things it was, so we wanted to focus on art because that's what everybody says NFTs is right now. It's how everybody knows it. But it was a way to actually get like, say, Pokemon trading cards in the space and actually enhance their Pokemon Go by creating geo-located NFTs that people can fight over. And what you could end up having was some not even rare or liked Pokemon, but if it's the last one to be found in some mountain range somewhere, that would basically make that the most valuable. But and what that led me to think about is like, holy shit, what about GPS locations? Could you imagine a world where NFTs are on every plot point on the map? And I was like, the government would have, because you'd be able to see blackout zones. Like China would just be able to see what we don't want them to see, or just the fact that we don't want them to see that area. So I was like, oh yeah, this probably isn't going to happen, but
Sounds
it's
like
possible.
a co-op a little bit, like where it's like instead of like a proof of attendance, it's a proof of visit, like that you've been there, like the world's biggest ball of yarn, and you could go collect an NFT from visiting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like proof that you've been there. I mean, I want to. Where is this? Where can I go visit this ball of yarn?
I think it's in the prairies somewhere.
I don't know why I'm interested, but I think I am.
What happens when it rains? Like, is it outside?
Right, because it's not really yarn if it's like some material that it can handle. And I want to like get like and not a cat, but like a tiger or something to see if they would play with the ball of yarn like I would expect to.
So many thoughts come to mind.
Right. Also, I can get my NFT to prove that I've been there. That's pretty crazy. Well, we've had a lot of. Here's what's great, and I love, and I really appreciate you, Joey, for speaking today about your experience there with teaching NFTs. Great work that it sounds like you're doing, and even better, I think you are going into it open-eyed to see, what are some of the issues that you're seeing, and you're even involved in some other projects. It sounds like that could really, really kind of make a difference. These IDs that you could have on the blockchain, I truly believe that will be the future. I don't know when, I don't know the timetable, but it definitely could be a big part of the future. I did an AMA with a group called Photochromic not long ago, and they were trying to do something kind of similar. They even thought that you could have, cameras that you could, connect facial ID to blockchain identification. So lots of different possibilities with it. And I mean, I'm excited by some of that, but maybe just kind of scared too, that there could be cameras all around that are telling me where I am, and or not telling me where I am, but identifying me to the blockchain. What's up, Joey?
So, well, very similar to what you're saying. So, like Tesla, everybody that tried having like automatic driving cars with facial recognition software, the problem they were having, one of the issues with facial recognition software, is dark skin cannot be recognized sometimes. But if you tokenize everybody, I don't see why driverless cars wouldn't be possible. And fail-proof. But it's, to address your concerns, anytime they make your phone a key fob for your car, that's when you know we've gone too far, because then you can't go anywhere without tokenizing yourself.
Yeah, and so the biggest ball of yarn, by the way, is in Kansas. Just so you know, Stephen.
I gotta go. No, I'm kidding.
No, but you're right, and like the. So I'm really big into just disruptive technologies, and there's a lot of companies solve for this self-driving, what that looks like, what kind of wireless signal, there would literally have to be 5G antennas on like every light post from the coast to coast in order for that to like fully work network, how the technology, the cameras, the LiDAR, how it detects what is a person, what isn't a person. And there's a couple companies that like are using cell phone service, because almost everybody has a cell phone, where it detects, a transmitter or an antenna, and it's like, oh, that's a person, and that's kind of one of the safety features of how it is driverless. And and to tie it back to your point a while ago about, we don't want that, because then China can see where all our blackouts are, and every person is an antenna of like where there is service essentially at that point.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, guys, we have reached the end of our hour together here today. I always love the conversations here, and that no matter whether we have 300 people in here or just a small gathering of people, we always have really thought-provoking conversations, and I love that. I'm serious. I come away from these things more educated than whenever I came in, and even in this, even if it's not more educated, it's just made me think on things at a different level, and maybe even think of some of the shortcomings that we might have as we try to make this not just adopted, but adopted on a wide scale, because most people aren't going to look into things big. It's amazing. I have a big list of quotes here that I found that have to do with crypto, and we only got to about like 3 of them, because each of them kind of gets us discussing things, and we go on little rabbit trails, and that's what I want. I don't, I'm not saying we have to go over on we have to stay on the road. I want to go off the road and then kind of discuss just like natural conversation, just like real natural conversation.
Couple guys in a bar, you right?
Yeah, a couple guys at the bar just kind of laughing and sharing and talking about big balls of yarn.
Big ball of yarn.
That's right. That's right. So we're going to be here tomorrow again, same time. We're going to do the same thing. We will have a new topic to discuss, and then Zach and I will kind of talk about what we will kind of figure out tomorrow. We'll probably, I don't know if we'll talk about a big ball of yarn. I don't think that would be a good topic at all.
Well, I think that's a whole week. We'll do yarn week.
Oh, it's yarn week. I
Yeah.
like that. I really feel like that would get the participation high. Yeah.
Yeah.
Christine,
Screw music week.
our whole
Yeah, we're doing yarn week.
yarn week. I like this.
Maybe you can create a big thread about it.
Oh,
where's my laughter? Thank you.
Yes.
All right, guys. It has been fantastic being with you guys as always. We will meet again tomorrow here at the Traderverse Hour. We will talk about it again. We'll have more people in here and bigger discussions. Until then, make sure you follow this account. Later, y'all.
Peace.